Hello, and welcome to Next Gen Minds, the informal but informative weekly Sunday podcast made for students by students. I'm your host, Maddie Clark, and together we'll start a much needed conversation with students, experts, and other special guests about mental health. We'll bust some myths, find out what are the best ways to manage our well-being, and if all things fail, we'll simply manifest our way to sanity. In this week's podcast, I'll be talking to Beth and Sophie, two first-year students at Durham University, about the role exercise plays in their well-being, finding their why, the issue of body image, and how important exercise and creating habits are in establishing a strong, resilient mentality. So, without further ado, let's start talking and make a change. Beth and Sophie, I know that you're both at the best college in Durham, if I don't say so myself, which for those of you who haven't already guessed is Collingwood. But that's not the only thing that you guys have in common. You also have a love for exercise. Sophie, I know you're an avid dancer, and Beth is a bit of a gym bunny and soon to be qualified yoga teacher, which is super exciting. So I just wanted to start the podcast by asking you guys what exercise means to you and what role does it play in your life?
I actually don't see dance as an exercise. It is an exercise, but I don't see it as it's something I have to do in order to burn calories. And I think I've always had a healthy relationship with dance because I haven't ever viewed it as something I need to do rigorously to burn calories or whatever. I've always done it as a fun activity. But yeah, that's for me. And I also run as well. And I think running probably I do have, I don't know, maybe a bit of an unhealthy relationship with, because I do, and I have an app called Map My Run, and I'm looking at the calories, I'm looking at how far I've done, how much I've improved from last time and stuff. So I think with running it's slightly different because I got into running more recently, and yeah, I don't know, it's a different story with running.
Is it more the fact that with dance it's like a passion, it's something you enjoy doing, whilst with running it's more like an obligation?
Exactly, yeah. When I'm running, the only thing that's keeping me going is the music. Whereas when I'm dancing, I've got my friends around me, especially if I'm on a show, I'm enjoying that aspect to it. Running is different because I think I'm doing it more as like a form of cardio rather than enjoyment.
Yes, I can so relate to the enjoyment part. I mean, lockdown 1, I tried, an emphasis on tried, a cheeky couch to 5k, not quite 10k, I wasn't ready for that, mentally and physically. But I used to dread going for a run. I mean, I still do. It terrifies me. But when I actually remind myself how much better I would feel and the endorphins I would get after going for a run, if I cling on to that, it's so much easier to motivate myself to actually get out and get running.
Definitely. And kind of a sense of achievement that you've actually managed to get out, go for a run, because I did view it as a chore at the beginning of lockdown, but now it's a bit more enjoyable because I'm getting a bit better at it.
Exactly, when you can see progress, like when you can go from having an asthma attack 2 seconds in to actually being able to run for 10 minutes, that sense of achievement in reaching a goal. And like you said with dance, I mean, the fact that you burn X number of calories is like an added bonus, but when that becomes your motivation, it's hard to actually keep it up. When you can like set yourself goals like running 5k in 25 minutes or 30 if you're more like me, it not only gives you a challenge but also something to be proud of.
Yeah.
Anyway, I need to stop yappering on. Beth, what about you? What does exercise mean for you?
So with exercise, so I'll start off with like yoga, because that's kind of, I feel like that's the most linked to my mental health. And I kind of found that through, I feel like when I was doing GCSEs and I started getting into that, no one really prepares you for the stress. I know it's not that much, but it's just a lot of like academic pressure that you're bringing home as well because you're revising. And yoga was the one place where I just felt like I could just like not only just forget my thoughts but also process them. And the thing that I think is really important and valuable about yoga is like the mind-body connection that you have with it, and this idea that like our spirit is connected to like our muscles in our body. And it just made me like, I don't know, like relax.
Yeah.
Mindfulness as well, which is mindfulness for me has always just felt a bit, it's hard to fit into your routine, and I do try and practice it. But when you've got it as like a part of yoga and like meditation, as I've always found that more easier to like process my thoughts. So yeah, and then with the gym side of things, that, like Sophie was saying, I think I got into perhaps maybe for the wrong reasons. And like we were chatting about before, it's so much of the gym and so much of like fitness for women is directed like and all like surrounding aesthetic. And I think I kind of went to the gym to lose weight, which is obviously physically a good goal to have, but mentally it kind of did begin to dominate my thoughts a little bit. But one thing I do love about the gym is that sometimes, you know, when you've had a really intense day and you're just thinking about, like, I have a million things going on in my head, just to go to the gym and you're concentrating on an exercise that is repetitive. It doesn't take that much brain power, but you're thinking about something else. Your energy is going somewhere else. So that for me is really therapeutic. And just like now I've got more into like a healthy relationship with the gym, where I'm looking at like PBs and like how I can get stronger, rather than, oh, I'm going to do this, it's going to get me like a slimmer like stomach. Obviously that's an added benefit, and like, you know, body image is something that we just all have to deal with. But I think like the main thing now is like I go to the gym to be strong rather than skinny.
Yes, I think that you have hit a really important point, and that kind of comes down to, what is your why? Like, why are you exercising? I mean, I think there's a difference, like a very fine line between exercising as a passion and like exercising as an obsession. Like exercising because it makes you feel good and you want to see how far your body can be pushed, versus like exercising to fit a certain aesthetic or look or body shape. I mean, I think, I don't know about you, but I think that's where my downfall is. Like ever since my eating disorder, I've always seen exercise as a way to add value to myself, in that I think if I become skinnier, people will think I'm prettier and therefore I have more value, rather than like exercising because I want to look after my body because it has value in itself. Like this is just my own personal view, but I think I really struggle. I really think I need to reconstruct my self-talk. Like I need to stop assigning value to myself depending on how other people see me, but rather how I see myself. Like exercise for me because it makes me feel good, not for what I want others to see me as. I mean, what about you? Have you always had like a good relationship with exercise, or do you think that sometimes you've struggled with finding your why?
I think so. When I first started exercising, I really got into fitness about 2 years ago, and I had a really, really unhealthy relationship with exercise. And I think coming with that food, where I would like stick to, I'd go to the gym 3 times a day, and I'd run in the morning as my cardio and just do like exercises that weren't working. And I didn't want to look like a man, so I never touched the weights, and I would just be like trying to burn calories. And if I missed, because there's also like, I feel like sometimes with exercise, discipline is conflated with obsession. And this idea of like being disciplined and going to the gym every day, and if you skip one, you know, what's the point? I was so obsessed with going every day that I would punish myself if I didn't. And my way of punishing myself was I won't eat because I feel guilty. And exercise shouldn't be like it shouldn't really, obviously it is physically, I know, related to nutrition, but exercise, food and aesthetic, I think, okay, yeah, they're intersectional, but I don't think they should be like, you know, considered all as a 3, because I would be so obsessed with, oh my God, now I'm going to be fat. And like being fat, I don't know, I feel like it is, I don't want to be that person, but I feel like it is a gender thing. And it is definitely a thing that girls have dealt with more than boys, purely because of this like social media aspect of it. And it's kind of like, well, if she looks this way, I want to look this way. And one of the key things that I've come to realize, which is like dealing with body image as well, is like, you know what, when I'm never gonna look like Kendall Jenner, like I'm not her height, you know what I mean? I'm never gonna look like that, but like I can still be the best version of myself and healthy, but I'm never gonna be that way if I don't look after myself from the inside. Yeah, so that's kind of, now I'm at a stage, I go to the gym and I'm like, do you know what, I feel strong, and I feel like I'll be happy, like I can lift, like I'm like with my brother now, I'm like, I can lift more than you this way, and like that kind of thing. Obviously I can't lift as much as him, but like now I'm at a stage where like it is a passion rather than like okay, I'm just going to go have a horrible, miserable time, but I'm going to be really, you know, like this whole like hot girl summer thing and like summer body, like it's obviously like, you know, it's all fun and like we all want to look nice. Who doesn't want to look nice in a bikini? But like that shouldn't be our primary reason for what we eat and like what we do. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, like you said, it's so important to find that balance. And I loved that you touched on comparing yourself to other people. Like, realistically, I am a 5'5" woman with definitely above average flotation devices, if you know what I mean. And there is no reason for me to compare myself to a Victoria's Secret model because we have completely different body shapes. And it reminds me of this book written by Taylor Renee called Your Body Is Not an Apology. And if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend. And in it, she talks about radical self-love. And the first thing you have to do on your journey to radical self-love, God, I sound like I'm like on an advert or like TED Talk, like promoting like this journey to radical self-love. I promise you this is not a plug. Just bear with me. And so the first thing you need to do is like accept our differences. Like, we are meant to be different. If we all had the same brain as like Einstein, like would we have any emotional intelligence? Like where would our entertainment industry be? Would we be creative? Where would our services be, our sales? Like, in order for society to function, we have to be different. And I know this sounds super corny, but like we all have a different purpose in life. And so our goal, like your goal will not be the same as someone else's. So if we stop comparing ourselves and setting goals according to like what other people are doing and not our own like journey, we will never be able to truly accept ourselves. Next Gen Minds is part of an important initiative to draw attention to the mental health crisis unfolding amongst the future generation and to eradicate the stigma and taboo of talking about mental health. If you feel that any areas or topics discussed affect you, or you're simply feeling lost or overwhelmed, head to the Next Gen University's website for resources on how to cope, including the 30-day Mental Reset Challenge. This challenge includes short 3-minute videos to help equip you with a toolkit of useful coping mechanisms and ways to strengthen your well-being.
I saw this really good quote somewhere that was saying like, you know, a tree and a sunset are both beautiful, yet they're so different. And it's like, and yeah, and I feel like that kind of like, it kind of like showed, because like I was just like thinking about body image, like as you were speaking as well, like thinking about what you're saying, and I'll look at Kendall Jenner and I'll be like, oh my God, she's beautiful. And I'll look at Kim Kardashian and I'll be like, she's beautiful. Yeah. And they have completely different body types. And it just shows that there's no, like it's not one size fits all.
Yeah. Beauty comes in many forms.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. I'm writing that down. That's becoming a sticky note that's being stuck on my wall somewhere.
Yeah.
But you both have brothers, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know whether you find this, but like my brother is currently going through this terrifying thing called puberty, and he is like shooting up like a rocket, but because he's not really growing sideways, he's mainly just like skin and bone and there's not much muscle, so we sometimes like take the mick out of him and like try to encourage him to go to the gym, but like on reflection it does make me question, like it makes me second guess that body image is just for women. Like, I think there's a misconception that body image only affects women. And I think for men, there is definitely this socially constructed idea that to be a man, you have to be strong and have muscle. I mean, do you think that your brothers are ever affected by that kind of idea that to be a man, you have to be strong and big?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You've got more brothers.
Yeah,
so.
My brothers are always in competition who's stronger. So my younger brother, my older brother go to the gym together, and they're always lifting weights together, trying to get stronger. And I think there probably is a misconception that boys don't struggle with self-image as well.
I think it's also just like being like manly is being big. And like that is seen to be being big, and obviously we all know that's not the case, because men, like we were just talking about with women, have different shapes and sizes, and that's just a fact of life. but the fact that manliness is so like, it's like equivocal to being big.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, like being strong and competing, and like there's like this testosterone element of like, you know, I'm bigger than you, like.
And I also feel like girls are openly insecure, whereas I think maybe guys, it's a sign of weakness if they do open up about their insecurities and their self-image. So maybe they just don't open up about it as much as girls, and they probably definitely do struggle with it. I know my brothers do.
It's like toxic masculinity. It's almost like there's like an image of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman. Like, do you guys remember that advert ages ago about Throw Like a Girl campaign? I can't remember what advert it was for. Amazing. Okay, so I can't really remember exactly what it's like about. You had like a group of people and they were asked to like throw like a girl, and majority of people would just do something like really feeble, like lift their foot up and kind of throw it very weakly. And then this I think it was one girl or like a group of young girls at the end that when they were asked to throw like a girl, they threw like with strength and power. So like we have just like constructed this image that girls are weak and men are strong, when actually, you know what? Yes, okay, genetically men might be able to, because of testosterone, be able to build muscle, but it doesn't mean that to be a man you have to be strong, and to be a woman you have to be weak.
Yeah, I think that's also like we were talking about before, sorry to like bring it back, but like we were saying, like generally, obviously, you know, men struggle with self-image, but for women the why for the gym is often unfortunately aesthetic. And I think that is linked to what you're saying before, in that women's purpose has kind of been historically and socially constructed to be like almost like a trophy, and like women are valued a lot more and like objectified for their bodies. So it's almost like we do define ourselves by our bodies, because that's how society's made us view ourselves, and our primary thing that we have to offer in the world. Obviously we all know it's not true anymore, and this is completely dated now, but it's almost like we've been taught that our primary thing we have to offer is our bodies and how we look. So that's why it becomes like a fixation, because you're like, well, this is where my value is in society and in the world.
So we've talked a lot about like the meta issues of exercise and well-being, like what is our why, the role of self-image, and our ideas of like what makes us worthy and how that influences our value and our self-talk. But I think a common theme when people talk about mental health is just to jump straight to the extremes, like depression, anxiety, eating disorders, etc. But I think actually mental health is not this black and white concept. Like, just because you don't have a medically diagnosed mental health problem doesn't mean that your mental well-being shouldn't be a priority. Like, without good mental health and well-being, like our relationships will be negatively impacted, like our mood will change, like we'll be less productive, like all the other functionings of our lives will not be able to like function properly without first ensuring our mental well-being is okay. And so that's, I think, when exercise and finding time to look after yourself plays such an important part in just general well-being. So I just wanted to touch on it and ask you guys how you use exercise or meditation or yoga to look after your mental health, especially during lockdown.
I think one thing that I've got into is journaling, because like we were talking about, like mental health, it doesn't have to be like these big draconian things that you do to, you know, like obviously it can be, and it can have devastating effects, but we all need to be aware, like we all have mental health, and we all struggle with it. Like that's not a, you know, that is true, that's a fact, that we all have times where we struggle with it, we all have times where we're fine with it. So we need to, you know, look after it, and it doesn't have to be big things. So I journal, and for me that's just some way that I can kind of rationalize how I'm feeling. I have a really good, it's called the 5-minute journal, and it's really good. It's made by people who recognize that you don't have, you know, the time of your day to write a whole bullet journal on how you're feeling, and it's literally 3 things. What are you grateful for, what's your intention for the day, and what's your daily affirmation? And then at night you do the same thing. Me and Sophie, I wrote Sophie in my journal the other day as who I'm grateful for. We had a bit of a laugh about it, but it just like, it really, I make a rule that I don't go on my phone first thing in the morning, and the first thing I grab for is my journal. And it means that you start the day, which I think is so important, acting rather than reacting. Because sometimes I got in really bad habits when I was at uni, just because you'd wake up hungover late and I'd just grab my phone and I'd get a text from someone that would just piss me off. And I would just be like, do you know what I mean? And I'd just be in that mood where I'm reacting and that's the first thing. And why should I wake up? And some of it was just so irrelevant. And why would I wake up to even the news? Do you know what I mean? Like waking up and reading the news and just being like, you know,
Also, I feel like when you wake up, your mindset when you wake up really, really dictates the day, and it determines it completely. And something I've been doing during lockdown, I've been spending so much time with my family, and I always go for evening walks with my mum and dad, and I find that's a great way to, I don't know, relax.
I love the fact that you brought up walks, because I have become over lockdown, I've become a serial walker. Like, if there was such a thing, I am one, because I'm doing daily walks, virtual walks, like the whole shebang, like you name it, because it like acts as like an escape. But like exercise, be that like walking or dancing or going to the gym, is like so good. I don't know about you guys, but I found it so good in dealing with stress, like lockdown, work, moving to uni, anything. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but like this is what I've been told. Science lessons with Maddie. When we get like stressed, apparently it triggers this like fight or flight response, which can like increase anxiety and panic disorders. So exercise is actually a really good outlet, because it allows your body like a physical way to channel that fight and flight. And fun fact, it actually boosts your memory and thinking skills. So you become like more productive, and it's also like linked with other dementia benefits and things like that. So basically, all in all, in summary, exercise is the best health cure for anything. So, like, bearing in mind how like great exercise is, have you ever found that you use exercise as a good stress relief? That like you would what would you recommend people do when they're like feeling overwhelmed or stressed?
I think getting involved in all of the things that college has to offer. So Beth and I were in the virtual showcase, and we've also been doing a lot of dance lessons with that. So like musical theatre, dance rehearsals. And I think just getting involved as much as you can is a great stress relief. I mean, it takes your mind to a different place other than the academic life, you know? So I think just getting involved and just not viewing exercise as a chore. Find something that's going to motivate you and that's you're going to look forward to when you're working. I think it's a great way. So for Beth and I, that's the musical theatre dance lessons. Or I'm also in the street competition group, and I always look forward to that on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock, and that's what gets me through midweek. And then the weekends I have dance lessons as well with Instep.
Well, building on that as well, I think if you have a passion, and like the gym or like yoga or like we were saying dance and like musical theatre, it makes it like a lot easier, because I feel like when you're thinking about, for example, meditation or mindfulness, I know it works for so many people, but for me personally, if I'm thinking I'm doing this for stress relief, if you're constantly thinking about stress relief, it actually makes me more stressed. Whereas when it's something like dance or musical theatre that takes you out of yourself and it forces you just to put everything aside, and it is a stress relief, you're exercising, you're moving your body, it's not very challenging. And the same with yoga, you've got that like mind body connection, and your body's, you know, like, and I feel like when you're so like, okay, I need to not be stressed, so I'm going to do this meditation, I often find that heightens my stress, because I'm stressed about being stressed then, if that makes sense.
Like, but I think both of us don't really see the exercise we do
as but it's like, it is a stress relief, and I know I'll feel better, but like going into it being like, okay, this is going to be a stress relief, you know what I mean, like with that
like an unintended consequence of the exercise.
Like, I know it will make me feel better when I'm stressed, but if I force it, and if I'm like, do you know what, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to meditate for an hour because it will de-stress me, it doesn't work, because I'm thinking about it too much. Whereas when it's like, I'm doing this because I need to learn a dance, I'm doing this because I want to go like do a yoga class, like it's kind of way, like it detaches from that stress. And like obviously that is at the root of it, because you're trying to make your mental health better, but that concern with it and that almost like fixation on it just makes it a bigger problem, like you're adding oxygen to a fire.
Yeah, it's like you can't escape the thing you're trying to get away from if you're constantly thinking about it.
I think also I don't know about like anyone else, but for me, when I'm like, I don't know, in exam season or when I'm doing something, a project, I work best when I'm operating at like high levels of stress.
That's the same as me.
Yeah, I kind of need to be on a high, and without, so I know, I'm aware that I'm always going to be stressed and like, but I benefit from that. But exercise kind of works to like balance that out a little bit, and it's like a space where like I can release some of this stress, but I not lose it. You know, sometimes when you're really high stress and you just crash. Whereas with exercise, I kind of find like, okay, I'm really intense. Like I'll wake up really early, I'll work really hard, and then and then that exercise is just a little bit of relief so that I can come back the next day and do the same thing, because I know that's where I work best.
Definitely. And you're focused on a different thing when you're doing exercise, especially dance. Like, I don't know, if you've got a show coming up, you're focused on that, focused on a different thing. Whereas I think what you were saying before about the yoga and the meditation, you're focused on overcoming the stress.
Yeah, exactly. And then it becomes like a thing that you're fixated on. And also, like, I don't know about me and Sophie, definitely, like, we're both quite productive and like get a lot out of being productive. And so knowing that about yourself means that, do you know what, I can do tasks like even like laundry or like exercise or dance that make me feel like I'm being productive, but I'm not fixating and obsessing over like an essay. I'm still doing something that's keeping my mind busy. It's keeping me feeling like I'm on track, but it's not like I know that I'm taking a break.
Yeah, forming a healthy relationship with exercise is just so important for stress relief, I think. Walking, dancing, going to the gym, any form of exercise, even just a walk around Collingwood.
Yeah.
Anything that distracts you from work.
Yes. I like to call it productive procrastination. Like, you're not doing your work, but you're not doing anything unproductive, so you don't feel guilty. But I love the fact you also touched on walking with people, because I think if lockdown's taught us anything, is that we need connection. So use exercise to establish that connection. Like, find someone to dance with, go for a walk together, do exercise together, because, or anything. I think it helps with motivation, because like, you can say we need to get fresh air, we need to get out, especially on the days where you don't feel like doing so. And it also makes you feel like you're not alone.
Yeah. We also at uni, it's like a little bit silly, but me, Sophie and Izzy, there's like, you know the song Good Day? So we're just like, we're gonna have a good day. We would always have to sing to that in the morning. And it sounds so stupid, but like sometimes saying out loud, we're gonna have a good day, which is like but sometimes like that kind of affirmation, that just like intention for the day, it's so simple. You don't have to be, you know, meditating for an hour. It's just literally thinking, okay, I'm grateful for this. I feel a bit shitty because of this, but I'm going to do this today, and that's going to make me feel better. Do you know what I mean? And just simplifying everything, saying it's okay if I don't feel okay today, but here's what I'm going to do to make it better.
Yes, I think it's all about your mindset. And I've become a true believer in manifestations. Like, it's probably a sign that I've been on TikTok way too much. But I don't know if you guys have heard of the 369 manifestation method. It is like, I've been trying to do it. I think it's working. I'm not going to tell you what I'm manifesting because I don't want to out myself. But basically what you do is, there's this like theory that if you focus on a thought for 17 seconds, that thought starts to like attract like other thoughts and other energy, and then these like form bigger thoughts. And if you hold it for 68 seconds, like manifestation will like begin. So if you like wake up in the morning and write down a statement which is like longer than 17 seconds and like encapsulates like what you want to achieve, and then every morning you write down that 3 times, and then midday you write it 6 times, and then before you go to bed you write it 9 times, and then apparently your dreams will come true. Which I know sounds really corny, but I genuinely do think it does work, just because, I mean, you can think it's fate or the universe, but also like when you're thinking about your intention, it then becomes at the forefront of your mind. So all your actions and the things you're doing throughout the day like are working towards that, and so it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I think your mindset and your like your headspace is so important. It's such a game changer.
Yeah, I was gonna say as well, like what we were talking about before with body image and the difference between boys and girls. I do think it is more difficult for boys with these kind of little things, and I think it's often, like Sophie was saying, like for them to talk about insecurity is kind of seen as weakness, and dealing with these like thinking about actually externalizing how you're feeling, I feel like is a bigger challenge for boys. And I think that's something that's one of the reasons why we need to get rid of this stigma and this whole thing that mental health is this big dramatic thing that we need to, you know, meditate and all go out and do yoga together. Like, boys generally, especially teenagers, don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So this, just thinking like, okay, all you need to do is just say to yourself, even in your head, what are you gonna do today? How are you feeling, and what are you grateful for?
Like, going back on what you said, I think it's finding what works for you, because it's a journey. There's not a quick fix, but that doesn't mean that it has to be this huge time-consuming thing. Like, I know I'm guilty for it, but I think it's easy to like bump self-care to the bottom of the priority list, like especially when you're really busy. But actually, like you said, you don't have to meditate for an hour a day. You can just start with the small things, like thinking about your intention for the day, and that can like really help lay the foundation for a resilient mental well-being. But I mean, I guess it's easy to say this, but it's easier said than done. And it is hard. So like, how do you guys find motivation to keep checking in?
I think it's like what you were saying before, like thinking about your why. And also once it becomes a habit, it's just, you don't really question it a lot of the time.
It's part of the routine. You just enjoy it. I think also developing a structure to a day in lockdown has really helped me. Because I think when I'm alone, because I'm such an extrovert, I'm just consumed by my thoughts when I am alone.
Exactly. I think it's so important to realise that mental well-being is not this one-size-fits-all concept. I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to ask you one last thing before I have to let you go. If you could give one tip of how you would, or how you have found your balance with food or work or exercise, what has been that one thing that's helped you find that key balance?
I think experiment. Tailor your journey. Like, I don't know, tailor your journey to meet your needs and preferences. And no one's the same. You won't find like a uniform method to like overcome thoughts or anxiety or anything you're struggling with during lockdown or in any circumstances. You just need to find what works for you and experiment.
I think I don't know, this is really hard. I think in terms of like I'm going to go with like the exercise side. I think it's thinking about mind-body connection, and I think it's also thinking about like with what your goal is, detachment from something that's kind of outside of your control. Obviously, we can control how we you know, like look, that's a factor, but I think it's like being present and thinking, do you know what, I'm going to not think about that goal. I'm thinking about right now I'm going to be able to lift this amount of weight, and right now I want to be able to do this, and it doesn't matter at the end of the day if I get an hourglass figure from this, doesn't matter. And even that with your workload is thinking, right now I'm going to work, I'm going to focus, I'm going to do what I need to do to get focused, and if at the end of it I don't finish it, that's fine, but at least I know that I've been present in that moment. And even that with relationships as well, with people, with other people, like I find, so like one of my biggest goals of 2020 and 2021 was to just be more present with everything I do, because like I was saying, with those tasks, but also with people, sometimes we're always on our phones and things like that we're not actually in the moment, and then we reflect and we're like, oh my goodness, I didn't actually really connect with that person or whatever. So that's my tip.
Yes, I love those. Experiment and be present. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and hearing all your stories.
I felt like I was in the Graham Norton show. I really enjoyed it.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to have you both back on very, very soon. And a huge, massive thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in today and taking part in starting the much needed conversation about mental health.